Have you ever just stopped and thought about how we become, well, us? I mean, how we go from a baby who can barely hold their own head up to an adult who can debate philosophy or design a rocket. It's one of the most incredible transformations in nature. So today, let's dive into this amazing journey of how a mind is made. This right here is the central puzzle, the big question we're going to tackle. How does this unbelievable growth actually happen? It's a question that has fascinated psychologists for decades, and we're going to unpack some of the most powerful ideas that help explain it. Now, we're not going on this journey alone. We've got 3 brilliant guides to help us out. First, there's Jean Piaget, who will show us how we literally build our own understanding of the world. Then, Lev Vygotsky will come in and reveal the huge role that other people play. And finally, Lawrence Kohlberg will help us figure out how we build our own moral compass. All right, first up is Jean Piaget. He was a real pioneer who had this radical idea that kids are like little scientists, actively building their own minds. For him, development wasn't something that just happens to a child. It's something a child is actively doing every single day. So, how do we do this building? Piaget's core idea is something called a schema. The easiest way to think about it is like a mental filing system inside your brain. You have a folder for everything. For example, your dog schema might include things like 4 legs, furry, and barks. Okay, so what happens when new information comes along? Well, sometimes it fits perfectly into one of your existing folders. That's called assimilation. A kid sees a tricycle and thinks, hey, that's just like my big wheel. Got it. But what happens when something new doesn't fit? When that same kid sees a 2-wheeled bicycle, the old big wheel schema just doesn't work. They have to change the folder or maybe even create a whole new one. And that is accommodation. It's where the real, game-changing learning happens. Piaget believed we all move through 4 main stages. From birth to about age 2, we're in the sensory motor stage, learning about the world by touching and tasting everything. The big breakthrough here is object permanence. The idea that peekaboo is fun because you finally realize things still exist even when you can't see them. Then, in the pre-operational stage, we're a bit egocentric. We think everyone sees the world exactly like we do. In the concrete operational stage, we start thinking logically about real-world things. We finally get that a tall, skinny glass can hold the same amount of juice as a short, fat one. That's conservation. And finally, we hit the formal operational stage, where we can think abstractly, ask those big what-if questions, and reason like a scientist. That's called hypothetico-deductive reasoning. Basically, a fancy way of saying you can systematically test out ideas to solve a problem. But hold on, is development really a solo mission? Our next guide, Lev Vygotsky, didn't think so. He had a totally different take. He argued that our minds are shaped in a massive way by the people and the culture around us. For Vygotsky, learning is a team sport. It moves from the outside in. Think about it. We first learn by talking and interacting with our parents, teachers, and friends. Then, and only then, do we make that knowledge our own. Our minds are basically co-created through conversations and collaborations. And this leads us to Vygotsky's most famous idea, the zone of proximal development, or ZPD. I love this concept. It's that perfect sweet spot for learning. It's not what a kid can already do, and it's not what's impossible for them. It's that magical space right in between, what they're on the very edge of understanding, if they just get a little help. You can see it laid out here. There's what you can do all by yourself. Then there's stuff that's way over your head for now. And right in the middle, that's the ZPD. They help you get in that zone, a little hint, a reminder, breaking a problem down into smaller steps. That's called scaffolding. In education, this is absolutely huge. It means a great teacher's job is to figure out a student's ZPD and provide just enough of that scaffolding to help them build their own understanding. So let's put these 2 giants side by side. For Piaget, development moves from the inside out. The child is a lone scientist. For Vygotsky, it moves from the outside in. The child is a social apprentice. Piaget saw his stages as pretty much universal for everyone everywhere. But Vygotsky said, not so fast. He argued that our culture and our language are the main tools that actually shape how we think. Okay, so we figured out how we learn to think, both on our own and with others. But what about right and wrong? How do we apply all this thinking to build a moral code? This brings us to our final guide, Lawrence Kohlberg, who is completely fascinated by how we develop a sense of justice.
To dig into this, Kohlberg gave people tough ethical puzzles. And this one, the story of Heinz, is the most famous. Just imagine the situation. Your wife is dying, there's one drug that can save her, but the guy who invented it is charging a ridiculous amount of money. You can't afford it. What do? Heinz is stuck between a rock and a hard place, between breaking the law and saving a life.
So, pause for a second and really think about it. Should he have done it? Yes or no? Now here's the thing. Kohlberg didn't really care about your answer. He wasn't interested in the yes or no, he was interested in the why. Your reasoning, he believed, was the real window into your moral development.
And he found that our reasoning tends to evolve through 3 levels. At the first level, pre-conventional, it's all about me. Will I get in trouble, or what do I get out of this? Then we move to the conventional level, where it's more about us. We follow the rules to keep society running smoothly and to get people's approval. But some people, Kohlberg said, reach the post-conventional level. Here, you make decisions based on big, abstract principles, like justice and the fundamental value of human life, even if that means going against a specific law.
So there we have it, 3 completely different perspectives, each giving us a unique lens to look at this incredible journey we all take from infancy to adulthood. Let's try to bring it all together.
Now, before we wrap this up, it's only fair to say that no theory is perfect, and Kohlberg's has faced some important critiques. For one, critics point out that what we say we do in a moral dilemma isn't always what we actually do. His theory also focuses heavily on justice, maybe overlooking other key moral values like compassion and care. And since his original studies were done only with men, some argue it might not fully apply to everyone across all genders and cultures.
But at the end of the day, each of these thinkers gives us a vital piece of the puzzle. You could think of it like this. Piaget gives us our personal cognitive toolkit. Vygotsky shows us how our family, friends, and teachers help us learn how to actually use that toolkit. And Kohlberg maps out how we then use those tools to build our own personal moral compass.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Development isn't something that just happens. It's built, piece by piece, by our own actions and through our connections with others. It's a journey from the inside out and the outside in, all at the same time. It makes you think, right? Looking back on your own journey, who are the people who gave you that scaffolding? Who helped build your mind?